Today we are going to study a very interesting and fun topic, which is the idea of collisions. So when two objects collide, what happens? So let us try to look at that. So right now let's imagine that I have a floor like this. Okay, this is a surface, I'm going to pretend it's a floor. So if I drop this ball took some amount of time to come down. But at the instant of collision, can you even see what happened? Right, it was very quick. So the first thing about collision is that the time interval for the collision to happen, time we will say is really small, tends to 0, really tiny, maybe in milliseconds, microseconds. Okay, so two objects when they collide, the time of collision is very small. Time of collision, we are going to say or assume, is very small. The second thing, notice something interesting that happens when I drop this. There is a gravitational pull which gives it a velocity, right? After a while you basically have a velocity, it hits with a velocity. If I kept it here, obviously it's not bouncing. You can see that it comes and hits this with a velocity. But the velocity suddenly changed. So there was a huge change in velocity. What was downwards has now become upwards. You can see that, right? What caused the change in velocity? How did the velocity change so suddenly? Basically because there was a very large normal force acting on the ball exerted by the floor, right? So it was a huge normal force acting at that point. So we call such forces impulsive forces that act for a very short time, okay, but they are large forces. So we call these impulsive forces, large forces for very short times. We call these impulsive forces. So anytime you have a collision, you generally have impulsive forces, a huge force with which this object is pushing that object and that object is pushing this object. Okay, you can see that this large impulsive force makes sure that there is a big velocity change, but this all happens in an extremely tiny instant. So if I took this fellow will hit that one and exert a force in that direction, which makes this fellow's velocity change. Similarly, this will exert a force on that and which makes this fellow's velocity change like that. So that whole thing happened very quickly, right? The whole motion afterwards and before was for a significant amount of time, but the collision time itself is something which is really tiny. So anytime we are talking about collision, remember that we are talking about both of these situations. Now you know in general that force into time must be the change in momentum of a particle. We have learned this earlier, mv minus mu. And why does this work? Because F is ma, you multiply both sides by t. So if I have F equals ma, you multiply by t on both sides, Ft, which is the impulse, and we use the symbol J for this, right? So this is equal to m into a into t is v minus u, so we get change in momentum. Of course, this is a vector, so we should be writing it like this. Now let us take the case where I have two objects. So I'll call this fellow mass m1 and that one mass m2, and I'm going to assume that they are both moving in the same direction. Okay, so we'll take this as the positive direction for our calculation, because you know all of these are vectors, so we must worry about direction. So let us assume that in the beginning this was u1, was moving with u1, and that fellow was moving with u2. Now let us assume u1 was bigger than u2, so it's going to go and hit and collide. So once it hits, at the time of hitting, this exerts a force F. But then because this exerts a force F, Newton's third law says m2 exerts a force of minus F on m1. So you know this. And they act for the same time, and that's very important. Okay, so now what is going to happen when they collide is that this guy has a velocity m2, let us say v2, and after collision this fellow has a velocity m1 v1. Now for m2, what is the change in velocity? This was actually derived for a particle, no? What is the change in velocity? v2 minus u2. So we can write F into t is m2 v2 minus m2 u2, right? Change in momentum of the second particle. So this is change in momentum. Momentum final minus momentum initial is force into time. Now if I take this fellow, what was force into time? Minus F into T. So minus F into T, minus F into T is M1 V1 minus M1 U1. Can you see that these two are opposites? So if I add it, I'll get 0. So if I just simply add it, what happens is the impulse by this fellow on M2 and the impulse by M2 on M1 are equal and opposite. Why are they equal and opposite? Because Newton's law says the forces are equal and opposite, and the time is the same because Newton's third law also says that they both act for the same amount of time. It doesn't say it explicitly, but it's there. So therefore, this impulse and this impulse are equal and opposite. So when you add them, it will become 0, like here. And so if I add this, what am I going to get? I am going to get M1 V1 plus M2 V2. So this is M1 V1 plus M2 V2 minus M1 U1 plus M2 U2. Now if I take this to this side, I can write M1 U1 plus M2 U2 is M1 V1 plus M2 V2. We write this as the total initial momentum, and this fellow is the total final momentum, because M1 V1 is the momentum, right, of this fellow plus M2 V2 is the momentum of that fellow. So this whole thing is the total momentum of the system. This is the total momentum initially of the system. So initial momentum is final momentum. So we can write momentum in the beginning is equal to momentum in the end, total momentum for the whole system. Why is this valid? Because there are no external forces. Momentum was only changing because there are internal forces. So this is valid if there are no external forces. Well, that's not completely the full case. You can say that this is valid even if there are external forces, but the forces are perpendicular to this direction. Because if I had perpendicular forces, that will not cause a change in momentum in this direction. It will also be valid if there was an external force but it was acting for a very small time. Remember, the time is really tiny. So even if there is an external force, but F into T, because T is small, you will find that F is not very large. Here it's very large. So F into T is large. But if it was very small force, you will again find that impulse is 0. So instead of saying no external forces, I will say no external impulse. Makes it slightly more general, because you can have no external impulse if you have some force but the finite force for 0 time. So that is also possible. Okay, so anyway, the most important point is that initial momentum is equal to final momentum. So before the collision happens, find the total momentum. After the collision happens, find the total momentum. They should be equal. So I hope that is clear. So the most important thing for collision, the most important rule is momentum conservation. Okay, before and after collision, this depends on the direction, obviously. So for X direction, you will have momentum beginning must be momentum in the end. Y direction, momentum beginning must be momentum in the end, as long as you know that there are no external impulses. Is that clear? 0 external impulse. So now how do I use this in actual problems? So that is the next question. Please remember, was there an impulse on M2? Yes. Was there an impulse on M1? Yes. But was there an impulse on both put together? No, because this guy's impulse and that guy's impulse cancels out, because there is no external impulse, it's only internal impulses. Internally, for each particle you will have impulse. As a system, the total impulse is 0, because the internal impulses will cancel out. Right, so this is one. Now, when we try to apply this to collision questions, there are different types of collision questions. We will broadly study 3 kinds. The first kind is when something hits and sticks. When 2 objects hit and they stick and they move together, we call this perfectly inelastic collision. The second kind is the opposite side, perfectly elastic collision. Elastic collision. This fellow was perfectly inelastic collision. The second kind of collision is where they hit, but they may not stick, but the momentum of course must be conserved, that is definitely valid, but in addition there is no loss of kinetic energy. So that is called perfectly elastic collision. The third kind is something in between. It does not hit and stick. So it's not perfectly elastic collision. It is not perfectly inelastic collision. So we will say it is an inelastic collision but not necessarily perfectly inelastic collision. But this will be of a general nature. So some loss in energy. Okay. Now we will start by first studying the first kind because that's the simplest one, and then we will look at the second kind, and then we will probably look at the third one as well. We are now going to look at perfectly inelastic collision. Basically, what does perfectly inelastic collision mean? Two objects hit and then they stick. So hit and stick means that they have the same velocity at the end. That is after the collision. They don't have the same velocity before. Very typical example. Okay, let us start with a simple example. I have here an object. Let us assume that this was a 12 kg object. Okay. Let us also assume that this was at rest in the beginning. Now I am taking a gun and I am shooting a bullet. Now bullets usually are only like less than 100 grams, but I am going to assume that this was a really heavy bullet. So let us make this bullet, let's make this 3 kg. Okay, or let's make this actually 0.5 kg. Okay, because you can't have a 3 kg bullet, is like really massive. So let us say that this was a 0.5 kg bullet. But this bullet was moving at 100 meters per second, really fast. So it comes and hits this guy, and once it comes here, it's going to go inside. And by the time this thing moves, probably it is going to move a little bit like this. I will just, for sake of understanding, I will draw it as if it went all the way there. But this is all going to happen very quickly. Okay, so it won't have time to go that far. It would have just moved a little bit. But basically the bullet would have started entering this 12 kg block here. But by the time the bullet has stopped moving inside the block, it would have gone in some distance. Let us assume that this distance is d. Is that okay? Now this bullet is now sitting inside, and because now it's not moving relative to the block, both are moving together. So this is 0.5 kg moving at a speed of v. This is 12 kg moving at a speed of v. So it's 12.5 kg moving at a speed of v. First thing that we can do is to use the idea that initial momentum, total initial momentum must be equal to total final momentum. Why? Because there are no external horizontal impulses. Was there a vertical force? Yeah, there is going to be definitely mg, n, right? But we will ignore all of that. We will even ignore the fact that this will actually be a projectile that will come down. We will assume that this is going to go and hit it straight. It's going and hitting it horizontally. And we will also ignore any effect of friction, because the time of collision is so small that friction, if it's a small force, that force into that time is going to not be a very big thing. It is going to be negligible. On the other hand, the force this fellow exerts on that and that fellow exerts on this is big. They will have big impulses, but we don't need to worry about it because they are all internal impulses. We want to say net external impulse is 0. Internal impulses will, already cancel. What is the initial momentum? So what is momentum in the beginning? What is momentum? m1 u1 plus m2 u2 plus m3 u3, right? You have to add that up. So 0.5 into 100, 0.5 into 100 plus 12 into 0, which we can ignore. So how much is this? This is going to give me 50. What are the units? Kilogram meter per second. If I had kilogram meter per second square, it would have been newtons. So we can also write this as Newton second. So when usually we calculate impulse, we write Newton second. For momentum, we write kilogram meter per second, but it's absolutely no problem. Both are the same. Okay. what is the final momentum? By the way, we are only calculating this horizontally. Of course, this body is only moving horizontally, so no big problem. So what about the final momentum? You can say 0.5 into V plus 12 into V, which is 12.5 into V. But this momentum must be equal to that momentum. That is a basic rule, right? Momentum conservation. So if I write that, I am going to say momentum initial is momentum final, which means 50 must be 12.5. I will write it as 25 by 2 V. So I can cancel that out. There will be 2 goes there, 4. So V equals 4 meters per second. So that is the velocity of both the particle bullet and the block together. So each one has a velocity of 4 meters per second, but since they are all moving together, we can treat it as a bigger block of 12.5 kg mass. So this momentum was equal to that momentum. So very simple, particularly when it sticks, because the velocity is the same, it becomes extremely easy to solve. But suppose I wanted to add to this a few more additional information questions. For example, I can ask, what was the kinetic energy in the beginning? What was the kinetic energy of both the blocks together at the end, and whether the kinetic energy was also conserved, was it also the same, or was there a loss in energy, was there a gain in energy, and so on, right? So one possible question could be to find these two. Another possible question could be to say, find the change in kinetic energy. Another possible question could be to say, what is the kinetic energy loss? These are different questions, but if the question asks you for each of these, we should be able to calculate. Let us calculate first. What is the kinetic energy in the beginning of the whole system? Well, what is this guy's kinetic energy? 0, because speed is 0. What about this guy's kinetic energy? Half mass is 0.5 into V square, 100 into 100. Okay, so that is 100 into 100. So you can see, well, you can just ignore the 0 because the 0 doesn't matter. Okay, so if you see, this is going to be 1 by 2, 1 by 2. So this is going to be 25 times 100. How many joules? 2500 joules. It's a lot of energy. This bullet has a huge amount of energy. Now this bullet has come and collided with this. So totally now both of them have a velocity of 4 meters per second. They are moving together, so we can treat it as one big block. So what is its kinetic energy? Half, do you think it will be 2500? Let's check it out. So half mass, what is the mass? 12 plus 0.5, 12.5 is 25 by 2, mass into speed square. Speed is 4, so 4 square. Correct? You can see that there is a 4 here, and that 4 you can cancel, and you are getting 25 into 4, that's it, 100 joules. Did you see? In the beginning there was a huge amount of energy. In the end, the total kinetic energy is really, really tiny. So what is the change in kinetic energy? Change is always final minus initial. So what is the change in kinetic energy? 100 minus 2500 minus 2400 joules. Is that clear? Change in kinetic energy is a negative number, minus 2400 joules. What is the kinetic energy loss? Loss is always initial minus final. So 2500 minus 100, 2400 joules. Depends on what is being asked. If somebody asks you what is the kinetic energy lost, sometimes people just ask what is the loss in energy, but what they mean is loss in kinetic energy, 2400 joules. Change in kinetic energy minus 2400 joules. But basic idea is you can calculate the kinetic energy in the beginning and end because you know the velocities, right? Sometimes people, instead of asking you what is the kinetic energy lost, they will ask you what was the heat produced. Why is heat produced? Because this guy came with a large energy, and as it went boring inside the block, what happens is it has lost its kinetic energy and this fellow has gained kinetic energy. But the amount this fellow has lost is not all gained by the 12 kg block. 12 kg block has managed to get a very tiny part. whereas this 0.5 kg block has lost a large amount of kinetic energy. So whatever it lost minus whatever this fellow has taken, the remaining that it has lost is actually lost as kinetic energy, but energy is never lost. So it is lost as kinetic energy. It becomes kinetic energy of molecules, which we call heat energy. Okay, so the heat produced is equal to how much energy, kinetic energy that you have lost, which is 2500 minus 100. So it is 2400. This is actually the kinetic energy lost is basically the same as what is the heat that has been produced. So is that okay, clear? So with this we should be able to calculate a lot of such quantities. We should also be able to calculate, later we will worry about impulse on this fellow and on that fellow, etc. But I am more interested in asking the next kind of question. So here we were able to use this to talk about heat produced. So we saw how we can use momentum conservation to calculate the final velocity and therefore kinetic energy, and even things like how much has been the heat generated. So heat produced in this case was initial kinetic energy minus final kinetic energy, so 2400 joules. So we saw how to do this in this question, right? But let's imagine the exact same question could have also been framed with a slight difference. For example, it could have been that you had this 12 kg block sitting like this. Assume that the thickness doesn't matter, the height is not large. Okay, so it's just hanging there. It was initially at rest, so 0 meters per second. And you had this 0.5 kg bullet moving at 100 meters per second. So imagine that this bullet comes and hits this fellow and it sticks. So after collision, what is going to happen? It's the same collision problem, right? 0.5, 100, 12 kg was at 0. So after collision, 12.5 kg is going to have a velocity of 4 meters per second. But after collision, unlike this case where it's going to move straight because on the plane, here what is it going to do? It is tied there, so it's going to start going up, right? So this is what is going to happen. So it's going to look like that. I'm just assuming this is a particle, okay? So it don't worry about whether it's going to twist or turn or what. So we'll just assume that this goes up like that. So if I now say that it's going to reach this point and we want to know what is the maximum height it goes up to, what will you do? Well, you've already got that this is 4 meters per second. So that is something you will solve by using the earlier question. You also know that the kinetic energy is 100 joules. Whose kinetic energy? 12.5 kg mass together, the big bundle, has kinetic energy of 100 joules. So I will call this kinetic energy before collision. This is kinetic energy just after collision. And this I am going to call it kinetic energy final. So when it reaches there and it stops, its velocity is 0. So kinetic energy final is 0. How will I go from here to there? What is the connection? Because then you can say energy here, the energy remember was how much? 2500 joules. Can you say the energy before collision is equal to energy after collision? No, right? Clearly there is a loss. There is a loss which got generated as heat. But can you say the energy after collision, kinetic energy after collision is equal to the kinetic energy at the topmost point? Well, not really kinetic energy, but the total energy here must be equal to total energy there. Here you have kinetic energy and potential energy at this position. Let me say this was the 0 level. If I say this is 0 level, potential energy is 0. And then the height increases h. So the potential energy here is going to be mgh. 12.5 into 10, which is 125 into h, right? So that means this total energy must be equal to this total energy, and that is going to tell me what the height h is. So it will turn out 125h plus 0, which is 125h, must be equal to the total energy here, which is 100. So 100 by 125 must be the height it has gone up by. You see, we did the same collision, momentum conservation, the same logic to find 4. So till there the problem has not even changed. It is the same problem. But after that, what you do with that 4 meters per second has changed here. Here you do something else. Here you are doing something else. Are these the only kinds of questions? Not really, right? For example, I could have this block 12 kg sitting here and there is this bullet which comes 100 meters per second, same bullet, so it's 0.5 kg. So after the collision, what will be its velocity? V, it will be 4 meters per second, that we already calculated from earlier. But now let me say that this height was 45 meters. This guy is like a projectile, it's going to go and hit the ground there. Okay, how much time will it take to hit the ground? You know that for a regular projectile, if I drop a ball, the time that this fellow takes and the time that this regular ball will take is the same. But this ball is going to fall half g t square. So phi t square must be 45, t must be root of 9, which is 3 seconds. So this must be 3 seconds, which means in 3 seconds you would have moved 4 meters per second into 3 seconds, 12 meters. So you can calculate how far away it goes by using a projectile kind of question. You can calculate how high it goes, right? Maybe you can even be asked questions like what is the angle it has turned by. Now for all of this, here you are using energy conservation, here you are using projectile motion. There of course you are saying total energy, kinetic energy in the beginning minus total kinetic energy in the end for both particles together is the heat produced. So these are all applications once you have found the velocity, that is in this case 4 meters per second. So I hope you understand what we are doing here. We are splitting up the entire problem into 3 parts. Okay, so any kind of a collision problem we split up usually into 3 parts. All the stuff that is going to happen before the collision starts. Like in this case, I don't know why the bullet actually has a velocity of 100. Maybe different things happen to give the bullet 100 meters per second. So that is one part. Then the bullet comes with 100 and is just about to hit. From that time till the point where it finishes hitting, which is the collision time, we will deal with this equation. We will basically look at the idea that there is a change in momentum of this particle, there is a change in momentum of that particle, but the total momentum has not changed. Okay, so we will use momentum conservation and solve the problem for that part. So that will allow us to calculate the velocity. Then using this velocity you can do other things, like here in this case calculate how far away it's fallen, in this case calculate how high it's risen using energy, or in this case look at what was the loss in kinetic energy which turned out to become heat energy. So those are all applications of the collision problem. Usually collision questions come with a mix of the two. So split it up into 3 parts: before, much before the collision, then exactly during the collision, that is starting just at the time it's colliding to the time that it is finished colliding. Okay, and then the third part, use the result of the collision calculation to then find out whatever else has been asked.